tutto l'anno e all'improvviso eccola qua. Lei è partita per le spiagge e sono solo qua giù in città. Sento fischiare sopra i tetti un aeroplano che se ne va.
Azzurro,
troppo azzurro.
That's the vibes heading into the summer. We always got to keep it positive. As much as I think we'll get angry on this pod today regarding the squad announcement, we got to keep it positive. Euros coming up. It's just Adreano and myself, Nicholas, here on the Calcio Guys. Episode 230. Adriano, how's it going?
It's going good, man. After coming in off of the legendary Azzurro, Adreano Celentano, beautiful banger. I'm pumped. You know me. The Euros are around the corner, so I'm pumped. The squad got selected today, guys. Spalletti named his 26 men, but yeah, I guess we're going to break it down.
A couple of surprises. We talked about last week. There was the initial 30-man announcement. I was surprised. I didn't realize it was today. I know the rule was June 7th. I didn't realize the deadline was June 7th for the Euro team. I think they have until next Thursday in case of any emergency substitutions. But yeah, it was a bit of a shock today. I opened my phone at one point and then I just saw in our group chats, I think it was Nick Diani who sent it as a tweet that this was the official roster for the Euros. We'll go. I'm just gonna name them all. I'll get right off the bat. I'm just gonna name them all. In nets we have Donnarumma, Meret, Vicario. Defenders Darmian, Di Lorenzo, Bastoni, Di Marco, Gatti, Mancini, not Scalvini, Buongiorno, Cambiaso, and Bellanova, and Calafiori. And mid, Barella, Jorginho, Cristante, Pellegrini, Frattesi, Fagioli, and Foloruncio. And then up front, Chiesa, El Shaarawy, Raspadori, Scamacca, Retegui, and Zaccagni. So, we went through this last week, Adriano. Goalkeepers, I mean, not too many surprises here. At the end of the day, we knew it was either going to be Vicario or Provedel. I said Provedel. I think you said Vicario as that third goalie. You were right. A lot of people weren't happy with Meret being there, but I'm not surprised he's there. I mean, he's Spalletti's guy. He's the veteran out of the group. He was there 3 years ago as the backup. This is Donnarumma's job. Between Meret and Vicario, this is only in case of injury. Knock on wood, that doesn't happen. And Donnarumma plays all 7 games. But any thoughts on that?
No, I think for me it was like I said last week. I predicted it, and there was not much of discussion. I mean, I think many people are upset. Provedel should have been in instead of Meret. But at the end of the day, Nick, like you summed it up right there, this is all, preference at that point. In an ideal world, these guys are not touching the field, right? So, and I think Meret was the only player in Euro 2021 that didn't even get any minutes out of all 26 players. Even Sirigu got in there. Meret was the only one who didn't. So maybe this time he might get a run if Italy cruises through the group stage. But no, I mean, this or that, I think it was kind of like a toss-up. But I think the 2 set in stone were obviously Donnarumma and Vicario. Those are, I think, Italy's, 2 top goalkeepers. We have plenty, but the thing is with our keepers is that we have so many of them. It's a numbers game. At the end of the day, you were only taking 3. People were shouting out for Di Gregorio. Obviously Provedel getting the cut over maybe a guy like Meret, but. At the end of the day, it is what it is, and these guys are going to be our 3, and we hope for the best.
Defense. I think this is one position group that, Spalletti, pretty much he didn't really have any choices to make. Unfortunately, injuries to Scalvini and Acerbi, especially Scalvini. Here at the Calcio Guys, we send him his wishes. ACL injury on the last match day in a game that. Sure, you could argue meant something for Atalanta. They could have passed Juve in the standings, but this is a game that he really shouldn't have been playing. I know you could say that you could get injured at any time. Any player could have gotten injured in these friendlies. Well, they played one, they still have the other one. Hopefully, no one gets injured. But you just feel for the kid. He's 20 years old. I know he's going to have a future ahead of him. Hopefully, he'll play at the World Cup in 2 years. Hopefully, Italy will make the World Cup. But this is one of the bright young players. And even a Cherby, like, I don't think his injury is as serious. It's just enough that it knocks him out of the tournament. And I said it last week that this is a guy who he is a leader. He had a great season with Inter, and I think this is a loss, honestly, for Italy. It sucks. There's not a lot of players that have even played in a major tournament before in this team. 10 players who have done that. 9 of those were on the team 3 years ago, and only one other, El Shaarawy, was on the team back in 2016. So already you're losing one of those guys, so it goes down to 9. It sucks for him. And then in place came in Gatti, who was originally left off the original 30-man roster. So he comes in, and because of this, there's no cuts to defense. Spalletti really doesn't have any choices to make. He has his hands tied because of this injury, because of these injuries. I saw some people on Twitter today questioning why Gatti's there. Well, he's there because of the injuries. I think center back is one of those positions where I wouldn't say you can never have too many, but you don't want to have enough. It's one of those situations where you rather have and not need than need than not have when it comes to center back depth, because these guys they're in the trenches, right? All game they're getting physical. So in case there's an injury, you don't want to have. Imagine they didn't bring Gatti and they're down to what, four more center backs. I forget exactly the number, but he's a good player. He's going to be a bench player. He might not even play, but like as a Juve fan, I've seen him play some games. He's like what Gattuso says. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. There's a reason he was left off the original roster, but look, like I said, injuries happen, and then he comes in. He's going to fill a role, and that's it. There's really not much complaining here for defense.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think, like you said, I think Spalletti's hands were tied. That's for sure. I mean, first it was a Cherby going down, then the Scalvini injury. For me, it was just terrible to see. Again, it's a player that I've said on the show before. I've liked what he's brought to the table, and being so young, but in my opinion, being so ahead of schedule in terms of development. It's been pretty impressive to watch. It just, like I said, just a big shame. Granted, he is 20 years old. We hope that he comes back stronger, because these ACL injuries we've seen time and time again. These types of injuries, you might not bounce back to what you once were. We hope that that's not the case, in its entirety with Scalvini, because once you get injured like that, you're never going to be 100%, but you'll hope to get as close as you can to what you once were. So we wish him well, like you said. And you mentioned as well, Spalletti having his hands tied a bit with the defense, but I think a lot of these players were, in my opinion, probably locks, from the get-go. I mean, I know we spoke about it last week and such, the one player that you might cut from the defense, I think I said Mancini. I forget who you guys had said, but there was none. There couldn't have been any. And again, the whole Gatti thing. For me, I don't think he's a national team player, but listen, he's there. He's going to be, like you said, a role player, a bench player. And again, we got a question that we probably can touch on a bit later on our Instagram at the Calcio Guys. Speaking about formation, again, who knows what formation Spalletti will ultimately choose or go with. But I think having the flexibility of, like you said, having enough defenders or enough center backs for that matter, if he decides to go up with a 3-back or he changes to a 4-back, and in game, having that flexibility as well, I think is going to be key. There's, like you said, there's only nine returning players from the Euro winning squad. 15 players, their first international tournament with Italy at the senior level. So listen, it's a big change, but again, from the guys you listed in the defense, from Darmian all the way to Calafiori and everybody in between, I think, like I said, we're pretty much locks. And I like how there's not only depth in the center backs, but even on the wing backs, because when I go back onto my point, if we go with the three back, or sorry, if Spalletti chooses to go with a three back or a four back, there's depth on each of those positions from the left flank to the right flank. If it be Di Marco, Cambiaso, or if it be Di Lorenzo, Bellanova, or even Darmian for that matter, he can play both. So what I like about the defense is that flexibility. Italy's always been known for their defense, and we've had that that title for a long time. And last time around we had two veterans. Unfortunately, I don't think there's one veteran that can really take on that Chiellini, maybe Bonucci type of role. But at the same time, I think as a collective unit, they've shown that they've gone along and they can work together and play together. So I'm excited to see how that pans out. We need to be rock solid at the back, and it starts with these players here.
Yeah, and it's a young group, but I do like this group defense. I really do. I think this is probably Italy's strongest group outside of maybe goalkeeper. And this was maybe, if you asked me 6 months ago, I would have been a bit unsure with Italy's defending. Looking at the season the Calafiori had, how Bastoni's continued to grow. Even Di Marco, even Darmian, he's had a good season.
Buongiorno too.
Yeah, Buongiorno, of course. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they do. They might have to pull off Italy 2006, only allowing 2 goals all tournament if they want to win this.
One being an own goal.
One being an own goal and the other a penalty.
Yeah, exactly.
Midfield: Barella, Frattesi, Jorginho, Pellegrini, Cristante, Fagioli, and Foloruncio. I think this is where we start to question, because no disrespect to Michael Foloruncio, but what exactly has he done to prove his spot on this team? Is it just the fact that Spalletti wanted a quota of midfielders, but then you could have called up Ricci? I know people today were talking about Locatelli. Whatever, whatever you want to say about Locatelli, he wasn't on the 30-man roster, so I'm not even gonna talk about him. We talked about him last week, but like. I tweeted today, like, Folorunccio's only here because he scored a nice goal against Juve, and Spalletti probably liked that, But, like, again, he's probably just a depth player, but it's interesting because he has zero appearances for the national team. So where exactly has he proven that he deserves to be on this team? This one baffles me. He's going to be wearing number 26 at the tournament, so it goes to show he's really the last man on the roster. Out of 26. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't think it's a very strong group. It's not a very deep group. You have what? 7, 1, 2, 3,
7,
4, 7. 7, yeah.
Yeah.
Even Jorginho being there, I'm not convinced. Maybe it's just a bias of him missing the last couple of penalties in those big games for Italy. Of course, I like Barella, but he has a bit of an injury problem right now. Frattesi obviously is good. Pellegrini, I'm excited to see him. He's a player that missed out on the Euros 3 years ago with an injury, so maybe he has a chip on his shoulder. Fagioli, obviously missing the whole season doesn't help, but I think this is a talented player who, I think if you're going to talk about making cuts to the midfield, he's probably not the first name you're mentioning. You're going to mention Foloruncio first. And then if you cut Foloruncio, you have 6 mids. So what? You want to cut Fagioli just because? Okay, maybe some Juve fans will say, okay, bring Locatelli instead of Fagioli. Honestly, I'd rather bring Fagioli. He's a dynamic player, and that's what they need in the midfield. They have a Locatelli type player in Cristante who's going to play deeper, who plays that role. He plays it really well. He played great in the game. What was it against Turkey? When did they play? On Tuesday? He almost scored. He hit the post. He made a couple of nice passes. And I think he's very underrated, Cristante. So, yeah, I'm excited to see exactly how this group is going to line up, especially the first game, depending what's happening with Barella. I'm not, this is not, the Euro 2020 midfield that rotated 4 guys basically and dominated. They were amazing in that midfield. And, we'll see with Barella how much this injury affects him. I think the next man up really is. It depends if they want to start Fortezzi or if he's a bench guy, but maybe Pellegrini. I want to see more of Jorginho though. I want to see Euro 2020 Jorginho. I want to see a guy who's going to create plays, be dynamic, bring the ball up. If you have Cristante as a deep line midfielder, you need Jorginho as your playmaker, and you need Barella as a playmaker / runner. So they need to work as a group. This is if they're going for a 3-man midfield, which they most likely are. But yeah, I don't know, EJ, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, question marks all over. I mean, I know, we said it in the past, even dating back to pre-Euro 2020, midfield, we were saying midfield is was our strongest, position group. We had so many guys coming in and I think it's unfortunate, the whole Tonali situation. I would have loved to have seen him here in this tournament. You're just stepping into his form, into his prime of prime years. So again, that's unfortunate, but we already knew it wasn't going to be. We hope if Italy qualify for the World Cup of 2026, he can be a key figure there. But I guess gone are the days of relying on Verratti in the midfield, right? So for me, I think it's going to be Barella Jorginho duo in the midfield. I personally think they'll go to 2. Because in my ideal, or maybe not ideal, but just in my head, I've been like really honed in on this 3-4-2-1 formation. So I think they would go there. If they go to 3, I mean, they have options, but again, like not convincing. 7 guys. We hope for nothing to go wrong. There's going to be a lot of guys in there that need to step up and need to really show why they were called and chosen by Spalletti. Like, not a lot of experience in terms of international play, which is fine. That's not the biggest issue for me. But I just hope the quality is there. Because right now it doesn't convince me over the top. Like, I think I know kind of like how we're gonna line up in terms of, we all know that it's gonna be, the pecking order goes from Barella, Jorginho, Frattesi, Pellegrini. I think those are like the 4, inter 20 ones. But after that, Foloruncio, Fagioli, I'm not convinced. I don't think either of them. I don't know. In an ideal world, in a situation where there aren't certain guys missing, I don't think these guys make the team. But again, they have all to prove. We didn't think maybe a guy like Pessina was going to be anything last time around, and he scored 2 big goals for us, in the tournament. So again, anything's possible in tournament football. The only thing I'm going to go back on Spalletti for is that I remember at the very beginning he really made it clear that he wanted to make selections based on merit. There's some guys on this call-up list, Nick, that I don't know if it's really merit based.
Only the guy named Meret.
Only the guy named Meret is it. No, funny enough, the guy Meret is not merit based, and he's somehow on the team, right? So that's like try saying that 10 times fast. But nevertheless, I think it's a bit strange. I don't know if obviously maybe Spalletti knows something that we don't. I really don't know. People are going to ask.
Well, he definitely does.
He does, I guess.
He does.
But, I mean, people are going to ask us, like, why is Foloruncio there? Why is Fagioli there? Guys, like, I don't know. Like, we don't know the answer to that. Like, there's just something that maybe Spalletti saw. If it be in these trainings, if it be in these friendlies, just at Coverciano, whatever it may be, that we don't know. I mean, I think their profiles, like, forget the names, like Foloruncio, Fagioli. I think the profiles are decent. I think, like, they have decent profile, like, in terms of quality, but is it enough to say you're donning the Azzurri shirt in an international tournament? Like, I don't know. For me, that's where I'm in disarray with that. But we want to maybe, I was saying, I don't know if it was last week or a handful of weeks ago, whatever it was, but you want to maybe experience in this midfield. Like, I think Bonaventura was a name that could have been called. Unfortunately, he wasn't. So I'm gonna follow your lead there, Nick, and say he wasn't on the 30-man like Locatelli wasn't. There's not really much more, point of talking about them are these players. Again, unless something does happen from now until the 14th, and they have to make a switch, which could very well happen. But at the same time, this is what we have. These are the 26 guys. This is what we're previewing. This is what we're criticizing and talking about. But yeah, I don't know. For me, I'm hopeful, but at the same time, like, I need them to prove us wrong, or prove us right, or however you want to say it. But it's a strange one for me. But again, there is some flexibility in terms of the players. Like, I didn't think you needed 10 midfielders, but again, 7, you're cutting it a bit short, because again, we're going to go back onto the formation thing. Like, depending what formation we play, like Pellegrini can play multiple positions, right? Like, he can play in that 3-man midfield. He can play as a trequartista. He can play kind of, winger, or, in that 2 behind the number 9. So I think the flexibility is good in terms of that. We have our holding midfielders. We have our box-to-box guys. But I still think they need to prove, that they're of quality. But at the end of the day, once that first game goes off, and these players touch the pitch, I think all these criticisms might go out the window, just for our joy of the tournament coming back. But yeah, I'm excited, but at the same time, like I said, need to prove.
Yeah, you're talking about profiles. If there's anything going for Laruncho's way, the times I have seen him play this season, he looks just like a physical specimen.
Yeah, he looks. Yeah, I agree.
So he's the type of guy, if they get to extra time in the knockout rounds, you bring him on. He probably won't see the pitch in the group stage, but we'll see. Yeah. And then forwards, give us about what, an hour and a half to talk about this, Adrian?
maybe 2.
Retegui, Raspadori, Chiesa, Scamacca, Zaccagni, El Shaarawy, and the big name off the list, Riccardo Orsolini. This was a name that we all thought was a lock, and we talked about it last week. Okay, who's getting cut between Zaccagni and El Shaarawy? And it's Orsolini. And this I'm the most disappointed in, because when Spalletti talks about merit-based call-ups, this guy deserved it 100%. He had an amazing season. What was it?
10
goals, 4 assists. I forget.
6, 7, whatever.
Wasn't he on some of our team of the seasons?
So no, but he was on honorable mentions, I think.
Honorable,
sure.
Yeah, there you go. Good enough for the Calcio guys, but not good enough for Spalletti?
Makes no sense.
Come on. And I just feel bad for him. I seriously do, because I think he's like 27 years old. He's entering into the prime of his career. He's not going to get many opportunities. Who knows if he'll even have an opportunity in 2 years if Italy goes to the World Cup. This was his season. It feels like they were promoting him so much, especially ahead of the game in Bologna. I don't know. Something must have happened to convince Spalletti otherwise. And this is one where, if Italy bows out early and doesn't score enough, this is exactly the thing everyone's going to criticize, leaving Orsolini off this team. If Italy goes on and win the tournament, no one's going to talk about this. But, part of me does want to say, okay, trust in the coach, trust in the process. Let's see the results first before, coming up with any criticisms. No. But at the same time, we have seen the results from Orsolini. That's what's frustrating. He's had an amazing season. And I hate to say it. I really do, Adriano, but if there's an injury, I don't want to say I hope there's an injury. but if I want there to be a way that Orsolini plays with Italy in this tournament. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not wishing injury on anybody. Don't twist my words. But I hope if in case there is, he's the first man up. Because you look back 2 years ago, Italy had to make 2 changes before the opener. Sensi and Pellegrini were both injured, and then in came Pessina and Castrovilli. Castrovilli didn't really do much all tournament. I think he played once. Pessina scored 2 goals. So maybe, sometimes those injuries are a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
Even you look back, okay, this is a bit different, but you look back 2006 where Nesta gets hurt, Materazzi comes in, he gets his red card, and then Barzagli comes in, and then Materazzi comes back, scores the goal in the final, draws the red card, scores on a penalty. So, sometimes an injury opens the door for someone else. But yeah, regarding all the other players, between El Shaarawy and Zaccagni, I would have thought it would be Zaccagni. Even if you want to mention Raspadori, but again, he's a Napoli guy. He's Spalletti's guy. So I feel like Spalletti had a bit of favoritism in that sense. Obviously, for me, the locks are obviously Retegui, Chiesa, and Scamacca. People on Twitter today were saying Chiesa didn't really deserve it, which in a way I do agree, but he's just one of those players. He does have the talent. That's the thing. He does have the talent. Sometimes he just needs to put it together. He's had a very up and down season. He finished strong, so at least he did that. But people are criticizing El Shaarawy. I think he did enough this season to merit this. Obviously, Orsolini is better than El Shaarawy and Zaccagni. That's why you really would have thought at least one of those would get the cut. But it's just frustrating. It really is. It almost have no faith now. Not in the team on the field, just in the coach himself. That's it.
So I'm gonna for me it's obviously a whirlwind of emotion. I agree on the Orsolini thing. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know. It's gonna be hard to say that. I'm gonna maybe counter your point or play the other side a bit, but if with Orsolini there or not, depending how Italy performs, I don't know if it's based off of him that would have changed the whole dynamic of our attack. But he could have added more than I think some of these guys that got called up in the attack, would have. So for me last week, I picked Zaccagni that I thought would get cut because for me, I'm sticking in the back of my mind, merit-based call-ups. Really, drilling home what it means to wear the Azzurri shirt. Spalletti bringing in, what is it, 5 former number 10s, Totti, Del Piero, Baggio, Rivera, Antonioni, to kind of really tell these players and show these players what it's about. I'm pretty sure Salini was paying attention. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe that's why he got cut. I don't know. Like, for me, it doesn't make sense. Like, a player that has had his best season of his life, helping guide Bologna also into Champions League. We all know it was a lot of moving parts in that whole scenario, but Orsolini played a role. And he gets the surprise cut. And imagine, we only needed to make 3 cuts because we were down to 29 guys anyways, right? So I was shocked to see one of them being. We already knew one of them was going to be the keeper. So realistically, Nick, there was only 2 guys we had to cut because we knew one of them was going to be the keeper because we're not taking 4 keepers. And we already got hit with the injury bug a bit. So we were down to basically only 2 cuts. So really it was Ricci or, I guess a lot of people probably thought it might have been Ricci, Foloruncio, or Fagioli. So one of those guys and somebody else. Unfortunately, the somebody else was a player that had the best season of his life in Riccardo Orsolini. So for me, it's still head scratching. You're telling me that he couldn't beat the odds on one cut because we already were able to put the pieces together to know that it was only basically. Well, I'm going to say 2, but realistically only 1 because we knew it was going to either be, like I said, Foloruncio, Fagioli, or Ricci. It's a shame for that. I feel for him because, again, I don't know. Like you said, I don't know if the opportunity. I'm hoping the opportunity is there for him in 2 years. I'm hoping that he, under now newly appointed Vincenzo Italiano, he gets something else out of a guy like Orsolini that can prove his worth. But it's just a shame, season of your life, really had, a positive year. And in a tournament season, international tournament season, still didn't make the cut. There's not really much more words to say. It's just really unfortunate. This is a player that I think has gone really under the radar he had a lot of hype early on in his career. Was supposed to be that next talent. I don't know if he ever really, kind of like a Berardi, I don't know if they ever really reached maybe the next level, but I think they've had solid, in between, good and great player, like that in between. I think they've been solid to hopefully merit a call up to Italy, the national team. Berardi got his opportunity. Unfortunately, a guy like Orsolini didn't. Yeah, for me, again, I think that was the biggest talking point amongst all Azzurri fans and all Italians, like all over, because that's all I was seeing. Where's Orsolini? What the hell? Orso is not there. Again, I think I agree with all that. On the flip side, I don't think it's a make or break that if he's there, we're winning. If he's not, we're losing type of thing. But he could have helped. He could have definitely helped, especially just having that flexibility on the wings or however they wanted to put, set up and play in the attack. Going to the rest of the players, again, whoever's saying Chiesa shouldn't be there. Once he hits the pitch and once he scores a goal, people are all gonna go fucking come in their pants. They're gonna go fucking bananas again. They're gonna say, "Oh Chiesa, oh Chiesa, oh Chiesa, we love you." But just before you were talking shit about him. Listen, I'm not on the fucking big bandwagon of Chiesa, but I do like him as a player. He's Italy's best. He's one of Italy's best, better attackers, and on his day, maybe Italy's best player. So for me, that was a lock. I'm happy that it came to the point where we didn't have to leave off one of Scamacca or Retegui. I think I'm glad to see them both there. I think they both deserve to be there. People are going to say, "Oh, Retegui, he score not even 10 goals in Serie A. He's a bum. He's this, he's that." This guy, as soon as he put on the Azzurri blue, he scores. So I'm hoping to see more of that come the tournament. I mean, if we're going to go back to what we saw against Turkey, we're going to start smashing tables. But he's really embraced, the Italian, the Italian life, the Italian, speaking a bit of the language. He's passionate, he's hungry, he wants to play, he wants to score. So I'm happy to see him there. Scamacca didn't start off the season well, finished strong. Like I said last week, it's not about how you start, it's how you finish. And Scamacca is an example of that this season. I'm just hoping that can carry over to the tournament. El Shaarawy, I think I saw somewhere, I forget, I think it was one of our comments on when I posted the call-up list. I forget who it was, so pardon me there, but they were saying El Shaarawy called up, 2015, and it's kind of funny because he somehow, some way, kind of still has the same haircut as 2015. But listen, I think he's obviously a depth piece. I think he's a player that we've seen either under Mourinho or under De Rossi is willing to do what it takes. Whatever role he's going to be there, he's gonna fight. So for me, the work ethic is there. Obviously, he still has some talent. He can score. He can provide assists. So, in terms of that pecking order, I think for me, and I liked him in previous seasons, but for me this season, if we're going back on Spalletti's words, merit-based call-ups, for me, Zaccagni was the worst in terms of all these guys, attacking wise. And I know all the Laziali are going to come at us and say, "Oh, you guys are crazy. You guys are singling out Lazio players, blah blah blah, BBB." Guys, you're going to have to take off the Lazio cap a bit because I don't know. Show me this. I don't remember the stats, so maybe I'm wrong. So prove to me that I'm wrong. But for me, Zaccagni did not have the Zaccagni year that he had. If it be last season or the season before, even in his Hellas Verona days, it wasn't the same Zaccagni this year, which is fine because Raspadori didn't have a Raspadori season as well. But I think for me, I think Raspadori is a bit more flexible in terms of position. Even though I don't think he will need to play as a 9, he could play as a 9. He can play as seconda punta. He can play on the wing in that supporting role. Zaccagni, I think he's only really locked to the right wing or left wing, whatever it is. So again, I don't know, but maybe we're talking crazy, but that's how I see it. If I would have had to have picked somebody just based off this season, for me, Orsolini was clear of both those guys for that matter. Even all three, if we're really talking, calling a spade, Orsolini this season was better than El Shaarawy, was better than Zaccagni, and was better than Raspadori. Unfortunately, one of those guys had to get the boot, and surprisingly enough, it was the guy who had the best season out of the three of them. So, who else was there? That's pretty much it. I think Chiesa is a lock for me. And I spoke about our two number 9s. Maybe I don't know. And then like I said earlier, we couldn't even maybe throw in Pellegrini into that mix because he's flexible. The only thing I won't knock about Spalletti is that a lot of these players are pretty flexible in terms of positions, because we'll get into it later, but whatever formation gets chosen and gets used more frequently, we have players that can kind of mix and match and go in different areas and still be productive. So for that, I'm not going to knock them, but for some of these non-merit based call-ups, it's a bit head scratching. But again, like we said with Mancini, even though he forgot to wear his glasses on a call-up list, we forgive him, so, and he brought us a Euro title. I'm not saying we're going to do the same, hopefully, but I'm going to put my trust in and faith in Spalletti. I know a lot of people are going to go against that because of the call-up list today, but we need to be positive. Like we said to open the show, we need to be positive rather than negative. I'm sticking with that course of action unless something really hits the fan where it's like a complete embarrassment, which, knock on wood, doesn't happen pretty accordingly.